Welcome in. We're reviewing week four takeaways. We had an exciting week of college football this past week. A lot of upsets, a lot of teams that didn't really look that good. I want to start with three teams that were going to be in the playoff conversation theoretically coming into the season. One of them still is technically in Oklahoma, but Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Clemson, all of them look pretty damn bad. Clemson lost. They got upset in overtime by NC State. Texas A&M lost to Arkansas. Wasn't really close. They looked like crap. And then Oklahoma just continues to sneak out games, even though they look like shit, and their fans are asking for their quarterback to be benched. What were your takeaways on those three teams?
So for me, I've been banging the drum that Oklahoma isn't that good. Like I've been saying it for a while now. Um, I've been a little less harsh than I'm going to be today. Like I don't think they're very good.
I'm
Uh,
out.
and by very good, I mean like I don't think that they are a top 10 team, honestly.
They haven't played like it so far. I think I've been kind of holding out judgment on Spencer Rattler. Kind of everybody's telling me this guy's really good and he's going to be the number one pick and he's a Heisman favorite. Hadn't seen it yet, but I was still holding out hope that all right, I'm still going to give this guy a chance to kind of show it. But I'm out. I'm no longer a backer of Spencer Rattler. I don't think he's definitely not winning the Heisman this year. If you're an NFL team, you can't be thinking you can't be his stock's got to be dropping pretty precipitously at this point from an NFL draft perspective. But Oklahoma in general hasn't looked very good. I don't think I brought this up before, but I work with a guy who's from Oklahoma and he's a big Oklahoma fan, and he's actually got a cousin that's on the team. He's a like backup wide receiver. He's a I think he's like a holder sometimes. I don't know. Anyways, he has told me that his cousin has told him that Lincoln Riley might not be as good of a coach as the national consensus might think. There was one story he was telling me. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, where in the off season there was a whole like 2 weeks practice where he was instilling all of these plays, and he did that. He's focused on this whole set of plays for 2 weeks, and then they have never gone back to them again, never talked about them again. It was just like, hey, let's just do this, and then completely forget about it. So it's like there's a chance Lincoln Riley. I'm starting to doubt if Lincoln Riley's even a good coach at this point, because West Virginia is a game that they should be winning really easily. West Virginia, that they beat Virginia Tech the week before, cool, and and Oklahoma struggled with Nebraska the week before. I'm completely out on this team.
So here's my thing is I actually think that this game says more about West Virginia than it does about Oklahoma because like I think West Virginia has the ability to be a pretty strong team in the Big 12. Um, and in my opinion, they probably should be like at the top of the Big 12, um, just comparatively to the other teams. So, like the fact that they were in this game, it shouldn't be like embarrassing to Oklahoma. But what it kind of tells me, well, one thing, I think West Virginia might actually be pretty good, and this may be a segue into a different conversation. And I think the one loss that they have, which is Maryland, may actually be a better team.
Maryland will be
Um,
featured in my best bets later today.
they will not be featured in mine.
Little
I
teaser.
considered it, but I'm staying away. But so yeah, and to your point about Lincoln Riley, how many years has he had some like one, two, three, four, five, or six best class in the country now,
Pretty much every year he's
and
been there.
he has not won a single playoff game.
Every year he's been there. What, 4 or 5 years now? Is it
Yeah.
longer than that? How long has he been
So
the
I
coach?
mean, yeah,
I'm
it's
looking it up.
it's been like I think it's 6 years now going on. So I mean, obviously, you have to be a at least decent coach to have undefeated seasons.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, Oklahoma's a good team. but by no means do I think that they are at the caliber that they should be competing for a national championship.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that also says a lot about the Big 12.
Pug.
Dog is winning. Pug is back
She can't
crying
stay
again.
away from the
She figured
camera.
out how to she figured out how to climb stairs.
Nice. That's exciting.
Yeah, so she now gets left downstairs and she'll climb up and yell at me.
For those who didn't,
So that's
who
fun.
don't know this, that the pug could not climb upstairs before, whenever she learned about this, which was a fun fact that I found pretty interesting.
And every time Brooke leaves the house, she cries a lot
Constantly.
until Brooke comes back.
Yeah.
Because she is dependent on Brooke. But no, that's really where I'm at on Oklahoma. I don't need to say too much more on it.
I want to talk one more thing about Texas A&M. A stat I saw today on Twitter.
Yeah.
What do you think Jimbo Fisher has, like, compared to Kevin Sumlin? How do you think he's done?
About the same.
Exactly the same. Through their first 40 games, Kevin Sumlin was 29-11. Through Jimbo Fisher's first 40 games as Texas A&M head coach, he's 29-11. So maybe they were a little quick to fire Kevin Sumlin, and maybe Jimbo Fisher's not as great as everybody thinks he is. That's all I have on a Texas A&M. Clemson,
I think.
What the hell?
I think it is one of. Oh yeah, we gotta. I'm gonna say one more thing on Texas A&M because I kind of forgot that you brought them up. I don't think they're really a bad team. I think that they need to figure out the offense. Jimbo Fisher overcomplicates that offense, and
they don't have Kellen Mond anymore.
Who is mediocre at best.
But he was still better than the guys that they have now, the young guys that they have now.
Sure, one, and they have a hurt quarterback, so like that affected them. But they frankly shouldn't have been beat by Arkansas, who lost their quarterback and didn't have their best receiver in the game. Like, Arkansas won handily without two of their most important players.
Yeah. We can touch on Arkansas too here. I did want to say I need to make an apology to Austin, our friend Austin, and all of Arkansas fans, because I had no faith. I had just absolutely no faith in Arkansas going into this past weekend. So here's my apology to the Texas state champs, the Arkansas Razorbacks.
They have beat 3 Texas teams this year.
I mean, TCU, Houston, they haven't played those guys, but I think they're pretty clearly better than them. So, but yeah, I just needed to make an apology to Arkansas fans.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's move on to Clemson.
Yeah.
So the ACC's undefeated teams are Wake Forest and Boston College.
We got a big matchup this week. Clemson, the underdog, going up to the undefeated Boston College Eagles. Who would have saw that one coming?
Nobody. I mean, I guess I don't know, man. Like, it's pretty wild to me that those are your 2 undefeated teams. Like, that's. I mean, if you look at the recruiting rankings of these teams and their average recruiting ranking, you're in bad shape if that's where you're at.
ACC is not getting a playoff team this year. They're not even going to come close to the playoffs this year.
They shouldn't. They absolutely shouldn't.
They don't have a team. They don't have a team ranked in the top 20 right now, do they? I think it's like NC State's like 22 or 21. Clemson's at 25.
Yes, because NC State is the highest ranked ACC team.
North Carolina might be like 23, 24 or something like that, but
yeah, I think you're right. No, I mean the ACC is not very good, but we've known that. We've known that for a while, for years now.
Clemson was
the ACC
propping
hasn't
this
been very
conference
good.
up.
Yeah, I mean that's what it was. It's like, oh, this team literally just dominates the conference because every other team in the conference is, who they are.
I mean, Clemson, we got to give them the credit that they were a great team. They had some great quarterbacks come through there, won a national championship, but this offense right now
it's easy to win a national championship when you cakewalk to an undefeated season.
You still got to.
Like
They still
it's
beat
infinitely
Alabama in the
easier.
national championship. That's
Sure, but if you can sit all of your players after 2 minutes into the third quarter in every single game, like yeah, it makes sense
fair.
that your players are in a better situation to beat Alabama.
I don't know. I think there's a counter argument to that they didn't play anybody the entire year, so they weren't seasoned, but they still stood up. They stepped up in the playoff.
There's a counter argument to everything. I'm not saying that they're a bad team. I'm just saying like if you look at the years that they made the playoff, like they didn't have a single difficult season, regular season to any of those paths. And guess what? The one time that they play a top 5 team in the regular season, they lose.
Yeah.
And barely did they even score a touchdown? No.
Against Georgia, no, they didn't score a touchdown.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like
No,
okay.
they did. The defense was there. No, that was Georgia that had a pick six or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because Georgia
it's
won without scoring a touchdown.
yeah. The Clemson offense, like their defense is still really good, but that offense, the offensive line is putrid. You can't
Mhm.
even really make a judgment, a fair judgment on DJ Uyunglele because he doesn't have any time. He can't do anything. Um, he granted he
Yeah,
should
right.
be playing better, but I can't make a fair assessment off of him right now. That offense is just terrible. There are a
I
couple other
agree.
things that I want to hit on before we wrap up the week 4 review. Notre Dame, they keep finding ways to win these games. The final score line of that game against Wisconsin was a lot more exaggerated than the majority of the game was. It was a close game. Notre Dame's offensive line really struggled. I saw it was the most sacks that Notre Dame has ever given up in a single game. It was like 8 or 9 sacks or something like that.
Yeah, like the first 3 plays that Notre Dame's offense was on the field, they gave up a sack
Yeah,
in the first. It was like seriously the first 3 plays of each drive, I think.
yeah,
Um, and it's just like that's hard to come back from.
yeah.
But honestly, their QB's name is Jack Cohn, right?
Yeah,
So I think he played really well. If you're
I wouldn't
Wisconsin,
say
you
really well. He played
okay,
okay.
but he definitely played better than Grant Mertz.
Yeah, yeah.
So like if you're Wisconsin, you're like, oh, I wish we would not have
Maybe
let
not
him
cast that
go.
guy. Yeah,
Um, like and that's the thing that I just don't know. I mean, one the Big Ten West doesn't look very good right now.
you got
Um,
Iowa, and that's it. Iowa, and that's it.
yeah, that's tough. I mean, has a winning record,
I do.
and
I
they're in
did.
the East, though, right?
Yeah, no, they're in the West. I did want to
Oh,
say
they're in the West.
I this is about as good a start to the season as I could have hoped for. We didn't fuck up and do something stupid like lose to Oregon State or even, God forbid, lose to Connecticut or we played Notre Dame close enough. We did not look great against Illinois, but they still got the win. Um,
And that's all that matters
we
is
got the
that W.
win without David Bell. Didn't have David Bell. We went back to not sure who the starting quarterback is, flipping back and forth between Aiden O'Connell and Jack Plummer. But 3-1, that's about as good as I could hope for as a Purdue fan to start the season.
So the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten West are
I can't even name
now.
Iowa's starting quarterback.
It's I mean, it doesn't matter who Iowa's starting quarterback is. Is Adrian Martinez.
Yep.
Um, and then probably the 2 Purdue starting quarterback things.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, because Grant Mertz looks bad. The guy that plays at Wisconsin looks bad.
That's Graham Mertz. Yeah.
Grant Mertz is Minnesota. Minnesota. The guy that plays at Minnesota
Tanner Morgan.
looks
Is
bad.
it still Tanner Morgan?
Yeah, Tanner Morgan. It is still Tanner Morgan.
I
Tanner
feel like
Morgan's not looking good because he just lost to Bowling
yes,
Green.
very exciting as both of us, Cody, a Bowling Green alum. I attended there for a little bit. Both very happy over this past weekend that we got that big upset.
Bowling Green is 2-0 in homecoming games this year. and they play Kent State for their homecoming game this year. I wonder if that means something.
Maybe look at that in our best bets preview later, because
You may see something about that.
I'm pretty sure they're getting like 17.5 points or something like that.
16.5. But anyways, so yeah, the ACC doesn't look very good. Big Ten West doesn't look very good. That's kind of really like all my major takeaways from this past week.
I have one more. I just want to give a shout out to two guys that are probably two of the top 5 in the Heisman race right now, and they were not even in the conversation at the beginning of the year. It's kind of the year of the unheralded quarterbacks. You got the best quarterback in the country so far, Matt Corral at Ole Miss. He's been really good, and he's
wild.
He is like number 1 in all of the Heisman power rankings right now. And then the Fresno State quarterback, hadn't heard of him before these past couple weeks, but Jake Haener is turning into a little bit of a legend in these college football late night games on the West Coast, because they were down to UNLV like 21-9 or something like that, like late on in that game.
Yeah,
and
he looked not good in the beginning of that game.
And then he just let him back, and they won. And they had the upset of UCLA where he looked really good. So I wanted to give a shout out to a couple of unheralded quarterbacks that are out there right now. But yeah, I think that's all the things I wanted to hit on. So that'll wrap it up for our Week 4 takeaways.